Hugh, thank you so much for being on the show. I was very, very intrigued by your work in terms of your background. You are the executive chairman and founder of the DNA Behavior International organization, and you really focus on the fusion. And I wanted to dive into this between behavior and money, and then deriving insights that organizations and people in general can really be able to sort of derive to drive performance. But real quick, wanted to take just a quick second, if you can, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thank you, George, and it's great to be spending some time with you. And I'm sitting here in Atlanta. I think you could probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from Australia, but this journey with human behaviour, brought me across from Sydney, Australia, to America, and I've spent the last 20 years or so in Atlanta on this. It's really a deep passion for me. And I think my background in human behavior is a bit unique in the sense that I started life as a CPA, or in Australia we call it a chartered accountant, where I was a tax specialist. I did some auditing, worked in a few different countries. I got a lot of exposure, but where I was successful with it was not only just knowing the tax law as such, but also in how I customize an experience for every client. And often the client were multiple decision makers in the one organization. By somehow intuitively, I knew how each person was different, and I would be able to tailor the presentation of the tax advice, the solutions to those people. And I wasn't really aware that I was doing that. That came to me later. And anyway, once I'd had enough of the corporate world, and I think I was a bit like a caged up tiger in there, I really wanted to be out there in the world of business, doing something for myself, building a brand. I left the corporate world of being a CPA in Arthur Andersen and set up a wealth management business where I was helping families, from $1 million to $1 billion. And it wasn't just wealth management as such. It was also looking at their businesses. I helped them with corporate advice, etc. But my goal was to provide them with a very personalized service. But in that journey, somebody asked me one day, a friend of mine, Sarah, asked me one day, what are you really passionate about? And I said, look, I want to help people all over the world become financially self-empowered. That came from deep in my subconscious. I'd never thought about it like that before, said that. But what I knew was enough about myself and sort of, I suppose, my spiritual journey. That's something that's got to be addressed. That's too powerful not to do something with this. So I spent some time, reflecting, researching, thinking about, how would this be? And what I started to come up with was that if I was going to serve people properly in the wealth management space, even though it's a very money-focused business, it actually had to be about helping them understand themselves. And at the end of the day, and wealth is created from knowing from your talents, but also from being able to optimize your financial behaviors. And so, what I came to realize, George, was that if I was going to help with people with their money, I needed to help them with themselves, their relationships, their whole life. But understanding how they're financially wired was important. And that really comes from who you are, your financial habits, the decisions that you make, your perspectives on money, your relationship to money comes from who you are. So to operationalize that and build a global scalable business, which was always my boyhood dream, I needed to build a technology system to measure this for every person. And lo and behold, as life happens, when you're ready, you've got clarity and you're ready to make a quantum leap, the right person shows up. And that first right person was a lady by the name of Carol Pocklington, who, has been on my team for the last 24 years. And she showed me how these behaviors could be measured, and that what we were really dealing with was someone's natural, hardwired, instinctive behavior baked into them. up to about a level of 85% by the time you're 3 years old. So, at 3 years old, you haven't really learned about money as such. But you as a human being and how you are wired up and going to go out there and operate in the world is substantially shaped, at least at an instinctive level. And that's what we're always dealing with when, you're dealing with people, particularly under pressure. So anyway, we built a system, and it was the building of that system that took me to Atlanta, because we had to get it all scientifically validated. Could it be robust, stand the test of time, processes, all of that. People ask, wanting to know that was intellectual rigor in it, et cetera, et cetera. So I came across from Sydney to Atlanta 40 times over 4 years or so. And system got built in terms of algorithms, but also technology. And here I am today talking to you in 2024. So that's sort of been the journey. But I suppose it gets applied. This gets applied not only in wealth management, family businesses, but you're asking me before. We also do a lot of work with entrepreneurial businesses and even major corporations, and even this week I've been asked to help a government out, with its leadership teams, and how are they going to create value for their country, right? And at the end of the day, financial value gets created from financial behaviors, and we need to understand those for the leaders from the top down, in whether it's in a government organization or in a business or in the family unit.
There's a couple things that come to mind. I've been hearing a lot, and I don't know why this is something that I've been hearing a lot, like the last couple years, and I didn't hear it before. But there's a lot of discussion around like the correlation between your personal beliefs, the impact of limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
and your earning potential or financial abundance, right? And I know there's a lot of this information on like Instagram and these sort of things, and people have been talking about this, and I think it's maybe positioned a little more like self-help or spiritual content in these, these circles or these networks. However, I think that for me, it makes a lot of sense from a couple perspectives. The first one is that I remember when I was doing direct sales early in my career, we were doing a lot of door to door, that direct selling kind of thing, which is very difficult, right? And
Yeah.
I remember my manager used to tell me, he'd say, you got to keep your attitude high, right? You got to be positive, and you got to consume every morning. And we would just do this in like, because it was so rigorous, we would do this in 3-month blocks, right? And he used to tell me all this stuff. So I did it, right? I bought all these motivational books and Dale Carnegie and all these other, sort of books, and would start to consume this stuff. And I realized very quickly, Hugh, that my attitude was directly correlated to how successful I was in my sales process.
Yeah.
And if I was able to do something, and I started to actually observe this in myself, if I was able to do something which was not let the no's affect my attitude or energy after I received them, I would first of all have a better day overall, but the sales would eventually come. And when I would sell and I carry that energy to the next meeting, I would go on these like selling sprees, almost, right? There's a better word there, but I think you get
Yeah.
my point, where I that momentum was carried on to the next sell. And guess what? When I didn't do that, when I would get, I guess, undisciplined and start to kind of sit in a pity party, what would happen? It'd go the other way around. So I started to see this very direct correlation between that energy, attitude, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, and my success.
Yep. Well, and I think you're wanting to say it, but I'll put words on it. These concepts of self-limiting beliefs, managing your energy, your focus, not being distracted by no's, etc. some people will talk about that or refer to that as woo-woo,
Yeah.
and being soft. It's not soft, it's hard, in a lot of ways. Yes, it's soft because it's coming sometimes from a spiritual teacher or somebody that's just saying it in a motivational way. But it is actually reality, and in a way, you eat what you believe, or you live what you believe. You manifest your own success. And I often talk about, in the context of money, that money never sleeps. And I used to say that to my wealth management clients, in the sense that, if you save money, put it in the bank, then it'll earn interest on interest or dividends on dividends. The capital grows, and that'll work while you're asleep, right? But it's more than that. It's actually your belief systems about money are at work even while you're asleep. And if you go to sleep at night with a negative view about money, you're going to wake up with it, and you're going to manifest the wrong thing, right? And so, this is very deep, and I think and that's why money causes so much stress for people. But we're all different. We're all going to have, because we're different people, we're going to have a different relationship with money. You've got, clearly, George, a very positive relationship with money, a positive attitude to sales. Not everybody's wired to handle sales like you did. Go door knocking, handle the rejections. But there is a way forward for all of us, and a way to do it based on, who we are, our talents, our behavioral style, that can, create personal confidence. Because at the end of the day, confidence is a key driver of your performance. But you've got to have confidence. You've got to have belief in what you're doing, why you're doing it. Absolutely, no doubt. But we're all capable of that, and we're all capable, within our own context, of achieving unlimited potential. I think it's just getting personally aligned, and that's really what I'm doing with the DNA systems. Which is, being blunt about it, as a psychometric system to help each person optimize their talent and financial behavior alignment, so they can build that confidence, but with that, reduce stress. You've probably got a way of doing sales, or had a way of doing sales in your businesses that might need to be different for somebody else, because they're wired differently. But it doesn't mean that different people can't succeed, and it doesn't mean that different people can't be wealthy, in their overall, life, whether it's financially or just in their general impact.
Hugh, I wanted to dive
Yeah.
into the entrepreneurial quantum leap,
Yeah.
right? And that concept, because I know your methodology applies to a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a CEO last week of a startup,
Yeah.
and I knew that he was having a bit of a tough time, because he wasn't seeing the level of growth, right, that he anticipated. And he's pretty new to this game, right, and this
Yeah.
experience. And what I said to him, and by the way, like, I was telling him that, like, I feel those same things, right, all the time,
Yeah.
but I try not to hold on to them for too long. And I also, because what I was explaining to him, and this wasn't really me trying to be arrogant or pretend like I knew all the answers in the universe, but it's more me saying, I've been through this so many times now over the last 2 decades, that I know that what the other side, when you give up as an entrepreneur, feels like. And I've seen that over and over again. And I don't know that after all these experiences over the last, again, 2 decades, that I have a silver bullet. What I did say to him was this. I said, what if in this moment, when you're not seeing the level of growth and traction that you want, you're able to find peace and happiness within this moment? And I said to him, if you can do that right now, then you can face anything really, because then when the business is finally hitting that momentum, then it's, it's going to be a different experience. So um I my advice to him, which
Yeah.
is something I tell myself all the time, is find the peace and the joy and the that as much as we can flow state when things are not going that great, because we don't even know just like when that's going to happen. And I think your state of being throughout the journey, and your ability to actually make decisions and these sort of things that are the best for the business and for yourself are going to depend on your state of being in that optimal position, right? So that's what I had mentioned to him. Any sort of thoughts around that?
I would generally 100% agree, George, with what you said. I think that if I recapped a few points and reframed a couple of points there, though, that I think a lot of people give up too early. I think that, it's about what you define as what you define as success. And, I think that my starting premise is to start your entrepreneurial journey with a big dream, uh, and then actually to execute it, start small and finish big. I think too many people try to make something too big out of what they've got or what they're trying to do too quickly, and it doesn't always work that way. And okay, financing can be an issue in that, but you better to manage your expectations lower, and certainly not be compared. I think one of the mental stress problems is people comparing themselves to somebody else. Well, okay, this person over here built a business of Z dollars with X people in 5 years. Aren't they a hero? And I haven't done that, so I must be a failure, right? Or not very good, right? I don't think it works that way. I think you cause yourself as an entrepreneur a lot of stress when you start comparing yourself to everybody else. You've got to have a deep passion for what you're building and accept that it could take a long time. It could be 10 years before you really get traction. And certainly you're probably going to go from business plan A to business plan G. Now, some people apparently, or it appears to the world, have built something big really quickly, but there's often been a lot of things go on behind the scenes, different situations, different stresses they've had to endure, and the world doesn't see all of that. That's sort of like the overnight success after 20 years. So I think that your approach to helping that entrepreneur CEO reframe some of this for himself or herself is important. I think you've got to look at what are your success points all the way along. What did I do well? Okay, what would we tweak? What would we optimize? And I think a good principle to follow in that is, which we've done at DNA Behavior, is do you want to pursue a path 2x optimization, which is just improving what you're doing, or are you prepared to go for 10x? And actually, the principle is 10x is easier than 2x. What are you prepared to cut out some stuff out of your business? Maybe some employees, clients, processes, technology, and focus on what really makes you successful and where you're going to get the biggest bang. And I think that's where the quantum leap can come in. But you need to also get all your relationships right. You need to get your own attitude to money right. You need to get your patience right. And then you go for it. But you've got to have ultimate belief to do that, and confidence. But the moment you start getting hard on yourself, that isn't going to help, and that's going to seep through the team. That doesn't breed confidence for everybody else. I mean, as a leader, you've got to always be believing to keep everybody else there with you as well.
I know this is difficult to answer because
Yeah.
there's so much to it, but at a high level, how do you keep your belief at a high level? How do you manage that state of being, that energy, these sort of things? You mentioned being able to maybe cut some of the areas that are adding unnecessary burden or stress and these sort of things. So that's the first part of my question. The second observation that I just wanted to kind of point to is, I think for leaders out there who do not see the trickle down effect of their state of being or energy, being off and the impact that that has on the rest of the organization and their impact, or I should say relationship to financial behaviors within the organization. You're seeing this all the time right now in my industry in SaaS, right? B2B software. There's been this something called like the down market, right? Or whatnot, right? That people have been sort of referring to it as. And as a salesperson or as an organization, you're seeing people not purchasing products,
Yeah.
right? Not taking the risks that they need to take, not making decisions. They're somewhat frozen in time, and which we all know, if you just look at history and you look at actually observe your own life, when you don't take action, there's going to be a result, right, or consequence of that, and especially as an organization. And I think one of the things that I've identified from your body of work is, again, that trickle down effect, but the impact that it has again on the financial decisions that even your middle managers are making that then impact the organization overall, right? So just a couple things that I wanted to highlight there.
Yeah, and I think we are in an interesting time at the moment where there are a lot of delayed decisions. Things are going slowly, and whether that's because of the political environments that, and the political environment's not only in America, it's fairly global, and there's lots of uncertainties out there, and that could be an element that's slowing people down. People, some organizations don't know what to do with their workforces. But I think as a CEO, you've got to keep your head well above the ground. You've got to be remaining curious, looking out there for where there are different opportunities. The landscape's changing fast. How do you keep your organization nimble? Being able to address innovation and keep a new, in this world, keeping a new product line coming along or being ready to come along reasonably regularly. You can't just get stuck on one product. I think that's a problem because the world's so dynamic. So there's got to be a lot of innovation going on out there and innovative thinking. And sometimes that can come from the lower ends of your teams. There's somebody that, there's the gold nugget sitting lower down, and you've got to release that talent up to bring forward a solution and back them while you're keeping other things going, and recognizing there will be these ebbs and flows, but you've got to do it cost effectively. And I think that's comes back to how the CEO particularly manages themselves, responds to innovation, responds to the spending of money. I don't think the spending of money needs to be mean, but it needs to be tight. And a lot of leaders don't know how to manage that, or will think, okay, we're going to go out there and innovate. We've got to splash a lot of money at a new product launch. You don't need to do that. I think that it can be done tighter, and the ones that are successful are tighter with that. But at the same time, you've got to keep your mood even throughout that whole period. Just because there's a dip in sales, you can't bring negative emotions back through the team, because that's going to ruin everything. And you can't just pull apart the infrastructure of your team all the time either, because it's expensive to replace people. Retraining, but you've got to know how to rejig. I think technology, George, is a big assistant or enabler these days if you know how to work with it properly to help accelerate your business as well. But again, that doesn't have to all be at the expense of people. I think the better deployers of AI are thinking about it in terms of it being an assistant to people, not a destroyer. So there are a few points, but you're really getting into the tough question. But I think the leader has got to fundamentally believe in what the mission is, what the goal is, and in a way, even being prepared to take these uncertain times as an opportunity to up the ante, to say there's actually great opportunity there, particularly for smaller, more nimble businesses, to take the place of some, more established businesses that have got lazy or don't know how to change.
Hugh, I know there's so many
Yeah.
areas that we could dive into here. Real quick, if folks want to learn more about your body of work, perhaps even hire you to do consulting. I know you do presentations and
Yeah.
workshops and these sort of things. How can CEOs or organizations out there really take advantage of your offerings?
So thank you, George. I think the best place to find me is just to go to our website at dnabehavior.com. There's plenty of resources, materials there. You can even do a trial of our system just to get your, own personal alignment going. And then you can also find me in LinkedIn. There's plenty of things, being posted, et cetera, there. So that's the way to get in touch with me.
One last question. Do you see that there is this convergence between management and business culture and spirituality, and perhaps the integration of these principles that are as old as time? However, now we're starting to be a little more accepting of these concepts within our business, again, culture or environment. And I think one of the concepts that I've heard out there is this conscious management and conscious
Yeah,
leadership and these sort of things.
I absolutely think that there's a fusion of all of that, and I think you'll find if you explore some of the great leaders in the modern day era today, they've uh, they've done, they've gone and spent time on their own consciousness through learning, having coaches, and developing themselves. And I think, I personally follow Aristotle of Athens, who was around, in 400 BC, and his works and Stoicism and whatnot. And that all of that thinking is still relevant today. And there are others that are practicing that too. And it's totally relevant.
Awesome. Well, Hugh, thank you so much. I have my Stoic books here, Seneca, and a bunch that
Yep.
I've dived into, and I keep reminding myself to really apply those principles. So thank you so much, and thank you for being on the show. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, George. It's been great.